Alright, let's get into it. Beginner reptiles suck. I don't mean the animals themselves. I love animals like ball pythons, bearded dragons, corn snakes, and of course I love hognose snakes. But the very concept of a beginner reptile bugs me. There's something about the concept that really gets me, and I'm here to explain it as best as I can. I have two major issues with the idea of a beginner reptile species. And the first of those issues, and the big one I think, is that you're getting an animal because you think it's easy, not because it's the animal that you're passionate about. We just don't see this with other animals. I'll give you an example. We don't do this with dogs. If someone came to you and said, hey, I really want to get a pet husky, what would you say to them? Odds are you're not going to say to them, well, you should get experience with an Alaskan Klekai first, because that's an easier animal that's kind of similar to a husky. We kind of do this with reptiles. If someone came to you and said, hey, I really want a pet boa constrictor, oftentimes we turn to them and say, you should get experience with a ball python first. It's a similar species that's a little more reasonable to keep in captivity. And it's not that that's wrong. Ball pythons are absolutely an easier species to work with than a boa constrictor, but it just doesn't make any sense. If you go back to the husky example, what you would more likely say is, okay, well, do you have the ability to properly care for a husky? Do you have the space? Do you have the time? Do you have the energy to keep up with all of a husky's needs? My philosophy is that we should be doing the same with reptiles. If someone says, hey, I really want a pet boa constrictor, you should say, do you have the time, the energy, and the space and the money to properly take care of a boa constrictor? Because they have very specific requirements that you need to meet in captivity before you take care of one. And I think this mindset would alleviate the big issue that I have anyway with the idea of getting one animal to practice for another, is that you don't all of a sudden have a bunch of animals that you don't really want in your house, especially when we're talking about reptiles that can live 15, 30, 40 years if properly taken care of. You're gonna see hundreds and hundreds of YouTube videos about the best pet reptiles for new keepers, or the easiest pet reptiles you could possibly take care of. Most of those lists are gonna be filled with things like bearded dragons, corn snakes, ball pythons, hognose snakes, and a bunch of other amazing animals that make great pets. There's a reason these videos exist, and there's a reason that they're popular. But that doesn't mean that the easiest pet reptile is the best reptile for you. And I feel like I shouldn't need to say this, but I don't dislike those videos. I don't dislike the people making those videos. I think they make some great points, and guys like Adam Wickens or Clint's Reptiles make excellent videos about why you might like the reptiles they're talking about. I have a personal example for you. This was my first snake. This is my friend Astrid. She is an absolutely beautiful western hognose snake, an awesome species that many people can reasonably take care of. They're very simple. And this is my second pet snake. His name's Kvothe, and he's a blood python. Now, I absolutely love blood pythons. I've wanted one since I was 13 years old. They're one of my favorite snakes on the entire planet. I think they're so cool. But realistically, taking care of Astrid the hognose snake did not prepare me in any way, shape, or form for taking care of Kvothe the blood python. They're just too different. They're very unique species that each have their own unique needs. And honestly, I would have done just as well with the blood python had I never have kept the hognose snake. Because what really made the difference in my success with Kvothe the blood python was learning an awful lot about blood pythons. It wasn't about practice keeping other unrelated species. Keeping an animal well and having success with it has a lot more to do about your understanding of that specific animal, not about your experience working with animals as a whole. Again, if blood pythons are the animal that really excites you, I actually don't think you need to start with a hognose snake. In my worldview, the absolute best first pet snake for most people is the animal that they're really excited about, but one that they have the time, the money, and the commitment level to properly take care of it. And that's gonna take some research. That's gonna take some time to figure out, but I think that is something that is more valuable to try to figure out than trying to find what the perfect first pet reptile is for most people. This brings me to my second major issue with the idea of these like easy pet reptiles, these easy animals to take care of, is that most of them end up being taken care of really poorly because they're viewed as easy. People don't take the time to do the research necessary to care for these animals properly. How many times have you seen a ball python or a corn snake in a 40-gallon glass aquarium? How many times have you seen a bearded dragon that never got proper UVB lighting and was fed a diet of almost exclusively crickets and hornworms? I think a big part of the problem with what's happening with these animals, especially the ones that we see at chain pet stores, the animals that we see littering the tables at expos, is they start to be viewed, even by the most dedicated reptile lovers, as disposable. It's almost like the hamster problem, where it's you could do really right by this animal. You could put in the work to give it an incredible enclosure. You could take it to the vet when it needs it, or you could wait till it dies and another one is $25 away. Even here in Canada, where you have to take out a second mortgage just to afford groceries. And I think if we as reptile keepers were more selective about the animals that we bring into our homes, only choosing the ones that we're most excited to work with, we could solve a lot of that issue. Odds are, if you've been dreaming about keeping a pet Savannah monitor from the time you were 5 years old, and you finally get one, and you're gonna set it up in a brilliant enclosure. You're gonna put the time, the effort in to do the research, to do the work it would take to properly care for that animal. Whereas if you, as the person who's been dreaming about exclusively keeping a Savannah monitor, decides, you know what, I'm gonna get a Euromastix instead because I heard that it's easier, you may not take the best care of that Euromastix. And I want to make sure I'm clear. This has its limits. I'm not telling you that your first pet snake should be a Burmese python. Let's be real, you're not Brian Barczyk. And I'm also not saying that your first pet lizard could be an Asian water monitor. Maybe, but it's really, really unlikely. I am not suggesting that you should be reckless and thoughtless when selecting a pet to bring into your home, regardless of what kind of animal it is. This is not me saying if you think crocodiles are really cool, then you should go buy one and put it in your basement. Crocodiles are awesome, they make horrible pets. I am more asking that you be very thoughtful and be very conscious when bringing an animal into your home. I ask that you take the time to consider, is this animal going to enrich my life enough that I am going to want to dedicate the time and energy to do the same in return for that animal? When I was 13 years old, I made the decision that I really wanted a green anaconda. Now, I don't have one, but that's not because I feel like I need practice with all these other species before I get one. The problem is I don't have the money, the space, or the time right now to properly take care of a green anaconda. It's a totally unreasonable pet for my current living situation. But if I had millions of dollars and a massive space and enough room to build a pool for said animal, then I'm not gonna wait until I have experience with 20 different boa species. The point of this video, the crux of this video, is to not worry so much about what the perfect first pet reptile is. That animal doesn't exist. What animal does exist is the one that you're really, really excited about, the one that you get amped up about the idea of taking exceptional care of it. I also want to make it very, very clear that this was not a shot towards anyone who makes like top 5 beginner reptile videos. I love those videos. I love those content creators, and I'm sure a lot of them share the same sentiment I do. I just haven't heard anyone come at it from this angle yet. Anyways, guys, that's my tangent for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you've sat through the whole video, I really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. It means a lot, especially when my channel is literally just starting out. It means the world that you have taken the time to watch this entire video. With all that being said, have an absolutely phenomenal rest of your day, an amazing rest of your week, and we will see you guys next week.